Shofar Gimel Halacha chapter 3, the sixth Halacha in Hilchos Shofar. Shofar Teisha Tkiyas Matisha B'nei Odom. If you heard 9 blasts from 9 different people, and you heard them all at one time, Leotzafili de Achas. You didn't fulfill even one of them because you heard too many. The Lechem Mishnah points out the Rambam's text was 9 people together, as it should be written, Ke'echad, like one. But the Gizas of Rashi is that it's like in Tosefta, and the Gizas from is not like it came out in the Rambam. You don't edit the books because of Tosefta. These words the Lechem Mishnah took from Rabbeinu Manoach. And we find 2 reasons why you don't fulfill your obligation if you hear 9 void blasts from 9 people together. When they were all together, they mix and you can't hear a clear blast. Another reason is not according to the order. Yes, some of the, even if you would hear it, that it's intermingled with the wailing sound. Rashi questions on this on the text. You do not fulfill your obligation. When it comes to voices, a person who wants to discern them can do so. He has the ability to do so. Rashi has the question on text that you don't fulfill your obligation when a person can discern, and it's just, why is it different than the Megillah? And if the reason the Rambam is because they're mixed together, according to Rabbeinu Manoach, there's a disagreement into the text of the Gemara itself. But according to the second reasoning, because not in the order, then he doesn't fulfill his obligation, even if there's no problem about them being intermingled. And so we find that Goras Maimonides, that his text is like the Rambam, that he heard all of them from 9 people at once. He didn't fulfill his obligation. He recites that Rashi's explanation is the text, he fulfills it because the end of the Gemara was that 2 voices from 2 people can be discerned, distinguished, distinct. Amna Ri. However, the Ri keeps the text of our Svarim Lo yotzi, you don't fulfill your obligation. And he says that law is like the Rambam. The reasoning is because you don't hear it in the order of having a long blast before a broken blast and then a long blast afterwards. And if that's the case, the reasoning of the Rambam is because they weren't on the order that we should be. On Rashi's question that 2 voices can be heard, the Ran explains why don't you fulfill your obligation? But you didn't hear it on the order. The Lechem Mishnah says if that's the case, why don't you have at least one item that you fulfill? And the Rabbeinu Manoach's answer that there is no beginning or end to the Tkiya, it's not like a Tkiya that he blew for longer than 1 blast, but like for 2, then at the very least he has either the beginning or the end. But here it's different. But the Lechem Mishnah explains that according to the Rambam, there's a different reasoning. Since he's the opinion that the conclusion of the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah 27a is that 2 voices are discernible. Therefore, we're talking about blasts from trumpets and shofar, but they blew in the Beis HaMikdash. We didn't blow the shofar alone. They blew 2 shofars being blown, and in the middle there was 2 trumpets being blown. In the middle there was a shofar, and the trumpets completely finished before the shofar, and there you would hear them because the different sounds. You could tell which was which. But here everything was the voice of shofar. It's more difficult to discern, even though one is a wailing sound and one is a long sound. And therefore, even with 1 blast, you don't have anything. According to the Ran, If they're not according to the order, the Mishnah questions, according to the Rambam, why don't you have at least one sound that you should have, at least be able to count it, all of it as one sound, that you heard one tekiah. Yom Teruah and Rosh Hashanah 27 questions from the Megillah. That even if 10 people are reading it together, you fulfill your obligation because it's beloved. Even though it would seem people's voices should be considered classified as similar. Furthermore, he questions the Matan Torah. We have Zohar V'Shama B'divrei Echad. We heard it at one time. The Gemara says that two voices from one person cannot be heard, but from two people you can hear them even though they're similar. Therefore, he concludes that Yom Teruah is the reason of the need of the order of the voices as they are supposed to be done and not mixed. And he argues that that's the reason of the Rambam. They have to know it's a day of blowing and not of two people blowing together. Yom Teruah says, and like the reasoning of those who say that the order of the voices has to be one after the other and not in any other fashion, and therefore that's the reasoning of the Rambam, because you can say that the Teruah, the wailing, came before the blowing. The Halacha is the Torah says in 588, like the Rambam, if you heard 9 blasts from 10 people together, you don't have anything. You don't have a simple blast before and afterwards. It's not according to the order, according like the Tesis and Ran. But the Torah does not say, like the language of the Rambam, that you don't have any reckoning. So it could be the Torah is of the opinion that you have one tekiah. The Shulchan Aruch writes, like the Torah, and it doesn't mention whether you have one blast or not. The Mishnah Berurah cites the Ritva that he does have one. And so the Peirush would seem to say, therefore it would seem, going to this concept, you only have to have another 8 voices. Because from all of them that you heard, at least you heard one full blast. The Mishnah Berurah cites, furthermore, that there are those who say that even one blowing he didn't fulfill, and he has to start from beginning all 9 blasts. And he cites the Shah Atzion, that is the shlit of the Rambam. He writes that the reasoning of the Rambam is not clear, even though the Lechem Mishnah and the Peirush try to clarify it. Therefore, he comes up with a novel idea that you can say the reasoning of the Rambam is it's enough to have one blast before a wailing sound. Here, first he heard within the 9 voices, there are other blasts as well. Meaning, if it would be a question of hearing somebody blowing a blast and a wailing sound, he would have the blast. But here, since he hears a few blasts, therefore he doesn't fulfill even one wailing sound, because he can't tell which is the blast that he's listening to. And furthermore, he says the intent of the Rambam is that he intended to hear all of them at once. Therefore, he didn't have anything, just like the person who blows one long tekiah and wants to have it for the first and the last of the first batch and the first of the second batch. The intent ruins the sequence, and therefore it doesn't have the end of the first nor the beginning of the second. The Rashba on Rosh Hashanah explains in the first answer that this opinion is the logic is, if he had intent to have all of them fulfilled, he didn't do anything. If he had only intent for one, then he has one because he put his attention to it and he fulfilled it. And the second one he doesn't affect him, because he knows what he's listening to. But when he wants 2 voices, then you don't have anything, because you can't hear well 2 voices. from what the person heard the shofar and the trumpets together in the base of Beis HaMikdash, you fulfilled your obligation. Even there, you heard the trumpet blast. You have to say that the trumpet blast by itself is not an obligation. It's part of the sound you're supposed to hear from the shofar in the Beis HaMikdash. In the Mikdash, you blow with the shofar 2 trumpets. But if you didn't hear the voice of the Chatzotres well, we don't care. That doesn't affect us. Furthermore, the Ritva goes with that idea as well. He writes that since he has to hear only one voice of a shofar, also because of the mitzvah yoim, therefore he can't hear and have intent with the voice of the shofar that he has to hear, since amongst them that he hears is the trumpet, but when he wants to hear both of them together, even from 2 people, he cannot hear it. In other words, if when we have the shofar, he has to hear, even though it's heard among the trumpets, he can hear it. But to hear which shofar blast he's hearing from 2 people, that he cannot do. Thus, according to the Rambam, is the opinion, you don't even have one blast. It's talking about when he has intent and he needs to have, he wants to have intent to hear both blasts. Therefore, you don't fulfill even the one blast, since you would have to hear both of them. It can't be that he would hear it well. Now, if you heard it's Kiev Mizu, Tu Mizu, Kiev Mishlishi, Bezeh Chazeh Yotze, but if you heard the order of the blasts from different people, a tkiya from one and a bewailing sound from another, and a tkiya again, a long sound from a third, one after the other, you fulfill your obligation, even if they change off. One person blows the tkiya, next person blows the wailing, next person blows the tkiya, then the same person blows the tkiya, even if it takes all day. This is the Gemara in Rosh Hashanah 34b. Even in Halacha Hey, we learned this Halacha. Here, Rabbeinu Menach says that there it's referring to you heard all of them from one person. That you have in one day, you can fulfill it. Here he's telling us many people that here the novelty is you fulfill your obligation, even though there was a great waiting in between. The opposite of Rashi, that he doesn't say the law of a blast from this one and a wailing sound from another one, because he includes that in the words of Rabbi Yochanan that we mentioned earlier in Halacha Hey. Machon Nesher HaGodol writes, if you heard 10 blasts in 10 hours, rather 9 blasts in 9 hours, he fulfilled his obligation, even if they're from 10 people. So he put both laws together in the Shulchan Aruch. He doesn't fulfill his obligation until he hears all 9. And because they're all one mitzvah, therefore they impede if you don't hear all of them. So it says in the Gemara, Rosh Hashanah 34b, that the Kiyah, the voices impede the fulfillment each one. So the Mechaber says in 593, they impede each other if he doesn't know only part of them. That part that he knows is not good enough. In other words, if he can only blow a true or a tkiya, he shouldn't do anything. But in order of blowing a long and a medium and a short blast and a long one, or a long and a medium and a long, or a long and a short blasts and a long, that doesn't impede. If he knows what to do one of them or 2 of them, he does them. Because it could be that it's enough to have them, as we learned before, that we're not sure whether it needs to be a wailing sound or a broken sound or both together. But somebody who only knows to blow a long sound or a broken sound, and he doesn't know the rest, he doesn't fulfill his obligation if he only blows that which he knows how to blow. Because the key is, with the order of the blowing, to stop one from the other.